Know what to eat, but find yourself not eating it. Perhaps you've been on diets and off again and just wonder why you can't stick to them. The Eating For You podcast, hosted by me, Sally Ann Pisk, will show you what's been missing so you can enjoy a healthier way of eating that lasts. Sally Ann here today, and it's my great pleasure to be sharing this episode with Hannah. Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you for having me.
Look, Hannah, I'll just give a little background to you before we get underway with our topic for today, which is Love Your Pet Day. So Hannah has been training dogs for around 15 years, 5 of which has been as a professional dog trainer. And whilst Hannah focuses on puppy training, she is into training dogs at other events as well, which we'll learn a little bit more about today as we get going. But most importantly, Hannah loves to help new puppy parents settle in to that important role because it is quite an important part of the dog's development at that time. And that's why her business is called Chapter 1 Dog Training, which I really love. It's like the first chapter, isn't it, in your story with your dog. So before we get talking with Hannah, let's just briefly introduce this concept of Love Your Pet Day. And it's really taken off in Australia because around 60% of homes actually own a pet, which is probably not surprising, and dogs are up there as the number one pet of choice. So this concept of Love Your Pet Day was founded in 2013, and it was based on Heinrich Zimmermann from Germany, who actually founded World Animal Day back in 1925 because of his love of dogs. So I'm just really keen now, Hannah, to understand, how did you end up being a dog trainer?
Yeah, so I love telling this story. When I was 9 years old, my parents actually got me a puppy for my birthday. We had recently lost our family dog, and my mum thought this was a good opportunity for my sister and I to experience having a Shetland sheepdog puppy. So for my birthday, they got me Cody, and I had him for nearly 14 years, and we loved doing training together. We went to puppy school. I learned about clicker training. We started some agility, and most of all, he loved his tricks. We learnt spin and leg weaves, all sorts of different tricks. They were our favorite thing to do together. And when I got a little bit older, I got a job in a pet store as a puppy school trainer. So Cody really kickstarted my career as a dog trainer.
Yes, no, thanks for sharing that. And we can all remember, if we've been in a situation to actually have a pet in our home, that first experience with pets. And I consider myself pretty lucky as well, Hannah, that we had rabbits, we had guinea pig called Rebecca. I still remember her. And we always had a dog, and we had a pet chook at a time because it had ended up on the road somewhere and ended up in our backyard as well with everything else. And then I always had wanted a horse. And so it wasn't till we moved from living south of Melbourne to Western districts of Victoria that I got my first horse. But it was nearly like I needed training because I was a teenager for once, which we're not always, great at taking advice as a teenager.
No.
With a new horse, I actually was given a horse when he was 18 months old. But Toby and I had amazing adventures, but certainly I could have done with something equivalent to puppy school for horses, I think.
Definitely.
When I started out with my horse. So getting back to Love Your Pet Day, what do you think is important about that day? How could we celebrate this day?
I love the concept of Love Your Pet Day. I think it's really easy to get caught up in your day-to-day life. I know when I had Cody, and especially in his senior years, he would sit around the house and be on the bed, and it was lovely to walk past to give him a pat and a kiss on the head. But I was going about my day. I wasn't making a special effort to do something special or fun with him. So I love the concept of Love Your Pet Day because it is a little reminder just to slow down and do something really special with your pet.
Yeah, I love that too. And it's really interesting. We're going to be talking about the health and well-being benefits of having a pet today. But yeah, we just forget how special they are. And it's a little bit like me with my horse at the moment, Chit Chat. She's a retired racehorse. So my goal really for her when I've got her was that I would be able to catch her in the paddock. It was a very practical, place to start. And I know, horses especially love being a herd animal. So I totally hear what you're saying is it's just like she's sort of got a head over the fence sometimes saying, hey, remember me? It's time, to do something with me. And you're quite right. Our animals, our pets love that contact with us as well. So often it's around food, which is obviously a win-win for them. They get they get some food, but some time with you. Yeah, just remembering, I suppose, to be present. And I know horses especially know when you're not present. That's when they'll give you a nudge or they might buck you off if you're riding them because they get frightened because their companion, their leader, isn't there. They can sense, when we're not mindful. And I'm sure dogs are the same as well. So I kind of think that they're great for our mindfulness practice as well, Hannah. So that's really good. So with Love Your Pet Day coming up on February the 20th, which is this week, do you have anything planned for your pets?
I do. So it actually falls on one of my days off, luckily, so I can spend some extra time with them. So I have a 5-year-old Australian Shepherd called Saffron, and she absolutely loves training with me. So we're going to do some of our canine hoopers training, which is like a little obstacle course. So she will love doing that. And after that, she is such a water baby. So we're going to play with the hose. I might have a special cuddle, bring her up inside, give her a special treat, just make the day a little bit out of the ordinary.
Yeah, nice.
And then I've also got a little guide dog puppy at the moment called Craig. And he loves learning new things. He loves having a cuddle, loves to sit on my lap, even though he's a big puppy. So I will make sure we do all of those things so we can have a great day together. And lucky last, I have got a cat called Missy as well. So I will make sure she gets some extra cuddles and gets to sleep on my bed that day.
Yeah, so you're going to have a very busy Love Your Pet Day.
Yes.
I've been thinking about this as well with Chit Chat, my horse, and she has been in paddocks close to our house. We have 25 acres where I live, so she's up in the top area of the paddocks. And that's partly because we've got so much feed, so I don't want her to eat too much, but also it's been very wet and the paddocks around the house are much drier. But I'm going to take her for a walk down to the back paddock because she's got horse friends over the fence. So they just love to race each other, along the fence line. So I will be contributing to part of her enjoyment on that day, but I'm hoping her neighbours will lend a hand and have a race with her as well.
That sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, I'm just hoping the weather will be good and yeah, we'll be able to do that. So, if you're listening now, have a think about if there's something you'd like to do with your pet or somewhere, if you've got a dog, you'd like to take them and go for a walk, get some time outside. And this all comes into, I think, those health and wellness benefits, which we might tap into now. It's a great time to start exploring those. Hannah, from your experience as like a pet owner and trainer, what do you see as the health and well-being benefits for people owning a pet?
I love that when you wake up in the morning, you have this little being there who requires your care. So you're going to get up, maybe take them for a walk. It gets you outside in the fresh air. Even with Craig, my guide dog puppy at the moment, I'm getting up earlier. I'm getting fresh air first thing in the morning to take him out for his toilet break. I'm not sitting there scrolling on my phone. So I think just owning a dog, there's so many benefits for you as well.
Yes, definitely. And I've certainly looked into this before because in the Eating for You approach, we look at all forms of nourishment. One of the things that I do work with people on is improving how they eat. But food is not our only source of nourishment. And Our pets can give us so much. And as I mentioned earlier, I've been very fortunate during most of my life that I've had a pet in my orbit. If not, we'll always ask if I can pat someone's dog when I'm at a cafe just to get that touch, of their beautiful fur and, see them smile and be happy as dogs can be. And I've also looked obviously at more the actual benefits we get for our mind and body. And certainly there's a lot of research around being with a pet helping to lower those stress hormones. So we get that feeling of relief and enjoyment. We also could get the benefit of our blood pressure coming down. We might sleep better. So then, we're going to be replenishing our mind and body every day. But just through moving, we're perhaps getting cardio fitness. We might be becoming more flexible. We might be building muscle, which is so important for bone strength, but also our metabolism. And time in nature. I'm a great believer if you can do multiple things at the one time and get multiple benefits, then do that. And certainly Toby, the horse that I mentioned earlier, we would just disappear into forests all day. And as a teenager, pre-mobile phone era, mind you, my mum would have no idea where I was. Now, if you're listening, I don't recommend you do this. You should always tell someone where you're going. And if you have a mobile phone, take it with you. But yeah, I realize now it was not only that journey with the horse that I was getting the benefit from, it was being in nature as well and socializing with other pet owners as well. Obviously with the training that you provide, that's one avenue, but then being confident to be able to take your pet to the cafe or to the local dog park and know that it's going to listen to you and socialize well with other animals. That's great because then you get to socialize with the people while the dogs are having their dog time, which I'm sure they enjoy as well. So I suppose in many ways that kind of brings us to there are some downsides, I suppose. As much as our animals can give us stress relief, they can possibly cause us stress at times. And I'm not necessarily talking about when an animal gets unwell. That's obviously very stressful, but there can be some behavioural issues. And I know that they occur with horses as well if we're not training them or reinforcing that training as well as we go along. So from the point of dogs, what sort of issues do you see sometimes with puppies and possibly older dogs, Hannah?
Yes, so I'm the first to say having a puppy or having a dog, it isn't all rainbows and sunshine.
Mm.
As much as you can benefit from owning them, it can be quite stressful as well. So personally, I've had Craig home 3 weeks, and having a little puppy is very exhausting. I've noticed that it's put a strain on my relationships. I'm stressed with not getting my work done on time. And with puppies as well, they're going through this phase of being really mouthy. And so if they're biting you, that's hurting. You're not getting enough sleep. They cry when you leave the room. And so you can start to get really run down as well.
Mm.
In terms of behavioral issues with dogs, if you don't put the effort in when they're a puppy and set yourself a really good foundation, as they move into that teenage phase, that's where a lot of your troubles are going to come out. And I think one of the most common issues is barking. If you're out at work, your dog is barking all day, you might have complaints from neighbors, housemates, family members. It can put a really big stress on you, and then owning a dog becomes more stressful than enjoyable.
Yeah. So, in terms of preventing some of these teenage behaviors in dogs, what do you recommend? Is it something that can be prevented by getting those foundations with puppy training?
Absolutely. So, what your dog learns first, they learn best. So, if you're fortunate enough to get your puppy while they're 8 weeks old, they have this little window called their critical developmental period. And what they learn until about 12 to 16 weeks old, when that window is closing, really sticks with them for the rest of their life. It's their point of reference.
Yes.
So, for example, what comes to mind is pulling on leash. If your puppy's first experience is wearing a leash, being comfortable, getting treats for standing beside you, moving into that teenage phase, you're going to have a much easier time teaching them to walk nicely next to you rather than pulling like a freight train because you've clipped the leash on and tried to go for a walk and they're absolutely scrambling to get ahead of you.
Yes, and how often you see this. I remember a time in Sydney walking around Lady Macquarie's chair, and there's a lot of, dogs and so forth, and joggers and dogs on leash, off leash. I think they're supposed to be on leash there. But I remember seeing one lady jogging with her dog, and they were basically running in unison. They were at a pace where they kept together. And then I can remember another person dragging their dog along. And, perhaps the dog just wanted some sniffing time. I don't know. And then, of course, I saw that, oh, I can't stop my dog. Yeah. So, yeah, it is interesting. And it's very much the same with horses. We need to teach them to respond to sort of non-physical cues as well and make sure they understand the pace that we want them to go and when we want them to stop and different ways to make that happen and reliably happen. So that's really important. And I could imagine, because I know what's involved with training horses as well, but it doesn't necessarily have to take a lot of time, does it? If
No.
someone's listening thinking, oh, yeah, I'd love to get a dog or I want to get a puppy or, a horse, whatever, but I don't have the time to train it. So is that something that is maybe a bit of a myth that you need hours and hours to train your dog every day?
I would say so. I think that's a really big misconception that they're going to require this huge block of time to
Yeah.
do the training. I ask my clients, what are some potential barriers with getting your puppy? And if time is an issue, I can help them with specific strategies that just slot into their day and their normal daily routine. I'm not expecting you to get home from work after a busy day, put aside half an hour and train your dog. It doesn't need to be like that.
Yeah.
So, for example, even while I was tidying up this morning, I had my little puppy Craig. I had his breakfast of dry food. And as I was tidying up, just in between putting things away, I went over and gave him a treat for lying down calmly.
Yeah.
And that's going to teach him how to sit around, how to be calm, not get into things he shouldn't around the house. But it didn't take me any extra time.
No, no. So it's basically a reinforcement for just sitting and being calm.
Exactly, especially with puppies, calmness is huge. As they get older, they realize things like jumping up, barking, all that stuff is fun.
Yeah.
Sitting there nicely, quietly, calmly, that's not fun. So
Yes.
we need to be the ones to reinforce that to strengthen
Yeah.
the behavior.
Yeah. And I suppose that brings us into that other important point is it's not as if you train your dog for 8 weeks and then forget about it. There's things that you would recommend that you continue doing.
Yeah, as you've said with horses, you've got to continue to reinforce the behavior as well. If you put 8 weeks of puppy training in, that's fantastic, but you've also got to maintain it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, your dog might start finding other behaviors that are more reinforcing. So, for example, my dog, Safi, she's 5. When I'm cooking in the kitchen and I want her to stay out, I will still periodically walk over to her bed and give her a piece of food to maintain that behavior of being quiet, lying down calmly, staying out of the kitchen.
Yes, and that's just brought a bit of an insight or observation that I have found with dog owners being in the supermarket. I am a dietitian. I'm always observing, what people are buying just for my own interest. Not no judgment here. If you're listening, thinking, "Oh, she's one of those diet police," no, I'm not. I'm just curious to see what people are putting in their shopping trolleys, and then I see some shopping trolleys that do contain a lot of highly processed foods, treat foods, for the family members. And I see the family in the pet aisle buying dog food, and I think, oh, I wonder if they're feeding those human treats to, the dogs as well, because I know I can recall, I'll own it. When I had a dog, we would give it the occasional piece of chocolate, but of course we know now that that is really quite dangerous for the dog's health. There's certain human foods that are really not meant to be eaten by our pets, are there?
That's right. I'm always conscious with what food I'm feeding my dog to make sure it's safe for them.
Yes, yeah. And as we were talking before we recorded, I think it's sound advice, Hannah, that you often give is just get your clients to check with the vet in terms of what foods, treats, appropriate for the animal that they've got or the dog that they've got. So that's really great. So, if people have been listening today and really interested in what you've shared and interested in learning more about what you do, how can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram and Facebook. My handle is at Chapter One Dog Training. And I've also got an email list where I send out tips, and we have a really great resource for National Love Your Pet Day.
Yes, and I've got it here right at my fingertips. It's a play and learn for dogs, and Hannah's going to make that available for you. So her links to her social media pages and also her website, and I'll get the details also from Hannah where we can download a play and learn sheet as well. So that's really great. Hannah, before we finish up, is there anything else you'd like to share, either about taking care of your dog or perhaps ideas for Love Your Pet Day?
I think something really important to remember is just to love on and appreciate your dog as they are. As I'm a trainer, people are usually coming to me with a certain picture of how they want their puppy to grow up and fit into their life, or what they want their dog to be able to do. But we also need to remember they are individuals and training doesn't fix them. With training, you want to enrich their life and help them fit into the world as best as possible. But also remember your puppy, your dog is doing the best they can. The world is so busy now, we're expecting them to walk nicely in busy suburban areas or lie down at a cafe that's full of people and dogs. I think sometimes we need to cut them a little bit of slack. I know we spoke about earlier with behavioral issues, it can be quite stressful and testing, but just to remember to love your dog as they are.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important because I mentioned, that my current horse was an ex-racehorse. She didn't have a long career as a racehorse because her trainer, who was a friend of mine, didn't believe in making horses race if that's not what they love to do. And when Chit Chat sat down after the sixth race in the barrier, in the starting barrier, she basically sat on her bottom. It was a clear sign she did not want to race. And not every animal is born to do what we think they are born to do. And I think, yeah, that's really important. And thanks for sharing that. And it's about our relationships with everyone, really, isn't it? That could be a whole nother podcast because
Exactly.
we talk about in horse training, we're not actually training the horses, we're training the humans because we have to learn to communicate in a way the animal can understand and in a consistent way as well. And I know that's the same for you, isn't it, with dog training?
That's right. Everyone always tells me, you have such a fantastic job. You get to play with puppies all day. But it's really human training. My job is helping everyone feel confident training their dog at home.
Yeah. Well, Hannah, thanks again for sharing with us on the Eating for You podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Now, if you've been listening along, or thank you so much for paying attention, and I do hope you have enjoyed this episode. Let us know what you have benefited from and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on other tips to support a healthy way of eating and living. I look forward to sharing with you again next week.